and welcome back to Vlogmas. It is Vlogmas day 3 and today's vlog is gonna be more of just like a chill, sit, chatty video because I have been taking detailed notes about my pregnancy since I found out, and for almost all of my first trimester I was not talking about my pregnancy publicly. We hadn't announced it yet. And so I wanted to talk to you guys about all these weird things that were happening to me and to my body, how I was feeling, all of like my must-haves and things that were making the first trimester bearable, but I couldn't. And so instead, I just wrote it all down in a Google Doc. And today is gonna be kind of like a first trimester recap video where we're gonna go through all that stuff together now that I have announced it and I am talking about it. And as of right now, I am 15 weeks pregnant. The first trimester goes from, well, actually it goes from the date of your last period before you get pregnant, because that's how they measure pregnancy, but essentially from when you find out when you got pregnant up into, I think it's like 13.33 weeks. So I just did weeks 4 through 13. I found out when I was like 3 weeks and 3 days, I think. And I started really experiencing symptoms around like 4 weeks and 2 days. So I have all the symptoms mapped out in like 2-week increments. So we have like weeks 4 and 5, 6 and 7, all that. And then at the end, I will also go through my pregnancy must-haves and things that really helped me out in the first trimester. So if you are pregnant or wanting to be pregnant, or you have been pregnant, hopefully this video can make you feel a little bit less alone in what you're going through, because at least for me, the first trimester, it was rough. It was not easy. There were a lot of weird changes and symptoms going on. And I definitely felt some, I guess I would even say guilt and shame about feeling so bad, because in my brain I was like, I'm so happy to be pregnant. I should be just thrilled and over the moon all the time. But when you're feeling so bad, it's hard to feel that way all the time, and that's so normal. And from the people that I've talked to and the videos that I've watched online, most women don't have a perfect first trimester. It usually is pretty rough. So I think my experience isn't too far out of the ordinary. And if you're not pregnant, if you've never been pregnant, if you have no intention of ever becoming pregnant, maybe this video is just entertaining and fun and you're like, wow, what the heck, pregnancy is weird. Okay, so let's get started. Weeks 4 and 5. So my 2 biggest symptoms at this point were majorly sore boobs. Like period sore boobs times 10. Like my boobs hurt so bad. Like if I brushed against my boob, I felt like I was gonna cry. It hurt so bad. And I was thirsty all the time. I felt like I just had this insatiable thirst. I was constantly drinking water, and I'm already like a big water drinker. Like I'm pretty good about staying hydrated. And in those first couple weeks of pregnancy, I felt like I was peeing like every 30 minutes just from the amount of water I was drinking. I also wrote down that I felt some stretching in my uterus. It wasn't quite cramping, but a few times throughout the day, and it was never really painful, but I felt like I could feel my uterus just like stretching, like just a little bit. And it was a very weird feeling. At first I was concerned that it was cramps, and I have had miscarriages in the past, so that caused some heightened anxiety at first, because I was like, oh my gosh, am I having cramping? But when I explained it to my doctor at my 6-week appointment, she was like, yeah, that's just your uterus stretching. That's probably gonna continue not only throughout your first trimester, but throughout your pregnancy. My nausea and vomiting also started really early. It started like right at the end of my 4th week, beginning of my 5th week. And at this point, it was the worst in the morning. I feel like at this point it was true morning sickness. Later on, it became just like all day sickness. But this sounds gross, but literally like when I would wake up in the morning, I would have to immediately go brush my teeth because I felt like the smell of my own breath was gonna make me vomit. It was that bad. I was that sensitive. And then sometimes brushing my teeth would make me throw up. Also with this nausea, I got incredibly picky with food. I was having intense food aversions, absolutely no cravings, like the opposite of cravings. And it was so bad that it got to the point where I like really couldn't cook my own food, because I would start cooking and the smell of that food, of just me cooking, would make me so nauseous. It would make me absolutely like repulsed by the idea of eating that. And so at this point, Steven was doing a lot of the cooking for me, which was so helpful. He was so great during this whole first trimester and second trimester up until now. He's just the best. And I was also having quite a bit of takeout. Specifically, there was one thing that just never made me, like never repulsed me. Like I could always stomach it. And it was this specific grain bowl from California Pizza Kitchen. And all things considered, it was actually a pretty good meal for me. It had like farro, it had black beans, it had avocado, spinach. And so I was eating that like probably, I would eat that like every other day. Like once a week, Stephen would go to CPK and pick up like 3 of those bowls, and I would eat half for lunch one day and eat half for dinner the next day. Probably 50% of my diet was this California Pizza Kitchen grain bowl. I also felt incredibly bloated, and I'm sure drinking that much water was also kind of making me feel even more bloated. But from what I've read, and with all of this, like this is just my experience, I am not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional, but from what my OBGYN told me, bloating in early pregnancy is really, really common because of the surge in progesterone. And then the last thing I wrote down for weeks 4 and 5 is I was trying to eat healthy and keep my protein up, but it was so hard with the nausea. And I had this idea going into my pregnancy that, you know, I wanted to eat really healthy and I wanted to make sure that I was eating all the certain nutrients that are good for brain development and fetal development. And of course, that is always the goal. That is still my goal, but especially in the first trimester when I was just so nauseous, my doctor told me, she was like, you just have to, sometimes you just have to eat what you can. And so that's pretty much how it went in the first 2 weeks. Things that helped me in weeks 4 and 5. Sparkling water. I was drinking LaCroix pretty frequently, and I found that a lot of the times if I felt like I was on the verge of throwing up and then I drank LaCroix, I magically felt okay. Also, eating something small as soon as I got up. I kept a little thing of cashews at my bedside, and before I even got out of bed, I would just eat like a couple of the cashews, and sometimes that would keep me from throwing up. And then the other thing I wrote, again, kind of gross, but just letting myself throw up in the morning. Sometimes if I didn't fight it and I just threw up as soon as I got up, then the rest of the day I felt okay. Okay, weeks 6 and 7, again, I wrote down major sore boobs. And at this point is also when I felt like my boobs were swelling and they were growing a lot. They were way bigger in just that couple weeks. Also, this is probably when my nausea and vomiting peaked. I think week 6 was my worst week. And it got to the point where even just taking like my supplements and my prenatal in the morning would trigger it. I was vomiting like 1 to 3 times a day, every single day. It honestly felt like I had the stomach flu at this point. I was also very smell sensitive at this point. Even just Steven making his coffee in the morning, I would have to go into another room. Still very picky, some food aversions. And at this point, I wrote down, word for word, here's what I wrote. Weird ass dreams every single night, the weirdest dreams. I started having super vivid dreams, so weird, weirdest dreams ever. And they would feel like they went on for like weeks or a month. And I would wake up in the morning and I would still feel tired just because I felt like I didn't rest. Like I was in this dream for months and then now I have to wake up and do the day. Also on top of that, I was tired all the time, like sleepy tired. Like at this point, I was taking naps occasionally, and I am not a nap person. I usually can't nap, but I was just so tired. I was pretty much going to bed at like 8 or 9 p.m. every night and sleeping like 12 hours. Also fatigue tired. My body felt very achy, very sore. Also, I started getting migraines occasionally at this point, and I've had migraines before in my life and like different kind of like spells, I guess. Like I had like a 2-year period in middle school where I would have like a migraine every month. Then it got a little better for a little while. It popped up again in high school, better for a little while, popped up again in my early 20s. But for the past couple years, I haven't really been having migraines. And so having a migraine like I was having them like every 3 days or so. Not fun. And also another physical symptom, I noticed that my veins were getting really prominent, especially in my boobs. I felt like I had like spider veins just like all over, and they were so prominent. I didn't even know that happened in pregnancy. Also, for whatever reason, after weeks 4 and 5, I didn't write down the things that helped as like an individual category for every 2-week period. I just put those all together at the end. So we'll go through the rest of those at the end. Okay, weeks 8 and 9. I said my boobs are still sore, still swollen, and they've definitely grown a lot. This is also when I started a nausea medication, and that got rid of like 80% of my nausea and 100% of my vomiting. My doctor had prescribed that to me after I had like a 3 or 4 day period where I couldn't keep anything down. And I was on that medication for I think 2.5 weeks. And by the time I got off of it, my nausea had subsided. So that was pretty much the end of my really, really bad nausea, which made me be able to like go back to a normal routine. Oh, I also wrote, I can wear leggings again. So I didn't write this at the beginning, but at the beginning, my stomach was so sensitive sensitive that the pressure of anything sitting on it, whether it was like jeans or leggings, would make me want to throw up. So I am like a person who wears leggings like 4 or 5 days a week, and I couldn't wear leggings. I could only pretty much wear like sweatpants, pajama pants, things that were loose and wouldn't press on my stomach. So I was very happy that I could wear leggings again at week 8. I also wrote, I can eat and function, yay. Again, still having the weird dreams. Also at this time, I started waking up to pee in the middle of the night. My aches went away, but my tiredness was still there. I felt like I still needed a lot of extra sleep. I was having occasional migraines, but not as frequently as the 2 weeks before. And then my bloating settled down a bit at this point. I still felt a little bloated, but not nearly as bad as at the beginning. And I wrote down emotional. I definitely was emotional in this period. I'm not sure if that was just the influx of different pregnancy hormones or the fact that at week 8 I had a subchorionic hematoma. So I had some cramping and bleeding. I went to the hospital. I thought I was losing the pregnancy, and turns out baby was fine. And now at this point the hematoma has reabsorbed, which I am so grateful for. But that was definitely a roller coaster of emotions, and I felt so emotional. All right, moving on to weeks 10 and 11. At this point, my boobs stopped hurting. They felt normal. They were still a lot bigger, but way less sensitive. And at this point also, I wrote down that I could no longer fit into my sports bras. I couldn't fit into most of my regular bras. I had 2 low impact sports bras that were more stretchy, and I could wear those. And I had a bralette that was a little bit looser, and so I could wear that. But at this point is also when I went and bought some new bras. The weird dreams continued, and now at this point I was waking up to pee every night between 2 and 4 a.m. And also I was struggling to stay asleep. I started waking up like clockwork every day between 5 and 5:30 a.m. and I felt like awake and alert, and that sleepiness that I talked about before was really gone. I felt like I wasn't excessively tired, and that I thought that was just gonna last the rest of my pregnancy, because I had read online that sometimes that happens to women and it's just their body preparing them to wake up early for the baby. But this only lasted until I think like week 13. So it lasted for about 2.5, 3 weeks. And now I am back to being able to sleep in as long as my alarm allows it. I was still getting occasional migraines, and I had some cramps that I wasn't sure if it was related to the hematoma. My doctor said it could be that, or it also could just be my uterus stretching. And overall at this point, I felt like I was hitting my stride in pregnancy. I felt really amazing. I was happy, I was thrilled, I was excited. Also at the end of my 11th week is when we announced it publicly. The really bothersome symptoms like the nausea and the vomiting were gone. I felt like I was getting out of the scary time where I was really nervous about having a miscarriage. I was energized, I wasn't so sleepy or tired, and I just felt happy and good and on cloud 9. Also at this point is when my skin started to change a lot. I've always had really dry skin, and I use a ton of hydrating products, and all of a sudden my skin started being really oily, and that also caused me to break out a little bit. And I had to kind of like revamp my skincare routine a little bit, because I had all of these products that are meant to like overly hydrate my skin, and all of a sudden I didn't need that anymore. So I changed out some of my products. I also during week 11 got a pregnancy pillow to try and start sleeping on my side. My OB said I don't really need to start doing that until like week 20, but I just kind of wanted to start getting in the habit of it anyways. Plus, pregnancy pillows are really comfy and really soft. Even if you're not pregnant, get a pregnancy pillow because they're great. And I wrote down that I felt out of breath all the time, just doing like a light workout or even walking up and down the stairs. I would have to take a second and just breathe. My veins got super prominent at this point, way more prominent than they had been a few weeks before. And okay, I wrote down exactly when I stopped my nausea medication. I stopped my nausea medication at 11 weeks, 2 days, but still felt great. And last, weeks 12 and 13, I really still felt like I was in this wonderful stage of pregnancy where I felt great, I wasn't tired, I was happy, I had let go of a lot of that fear. But during week 13, and even up until now, the vomiting did come back a little bit, but weirdly enough, it's not really accompanied by nausea. I didn't feel nauseous. It was just very easy to make me throw up. Like if I got like a whiff of a bad smell, or if I just brushed my teeth a little bit too far back, or even one day I just like coughed, like I cleared my throat, and that made me throw up. And so that was a little bit frustrating, especially there was one day where I was trying to film a video for my main channel and I just took like a 5-minute break from filming, drank some water, and just instantly threw up. And I was like, this sets back my filming schedule by like 30 minutes. I have to go like fix my mascara and like calm down my face because my face was all red. So honestly, it was more of like it was like an inconvenience, but I didn't feel nauseous all the time anymore. So it wasn't nearly as bad as early on. Also at week 13 is where I feel like I started to show a little bit, whereas before that it had really just been bloat. But I did notice that my stomach was starting to round out a little bit more, especially because I had taken a picture at 8 weeks and then taken a picture at 12 weeks. And I don't want to talk too much about weight and weight gain because I know that even outside of pregnancy, that's a really touchy subject. But between weeks 8 and 12, I hadn't gained any weight on the scale at my doctor's appointments. Like my body was the same on paper, but looking at these two photos, I was like, my body definitely looks different. And so I feel like that's when I started to show a little bit and I was really excited about that. And that's really all I wrote down for weeks 12 and 13. So that's pretty much everything that happened to me and my body during the first trimester. So now I'm gonna walk you guys through my must-haves, the things that really helped me. And I'll go ahead and put links to all of these things down in the description. So first thing, and I'm surprised, I have never seen this one in a pregnancy must-haves video, and I've probably watched like 20 of those, and this might be my top must-have. Sick bags, specifically the ones like this that have the mouthpiece in them and they're really small. Now obviously you can just use like a grocery bag if you have those, but Steven and I mostly use reusable grocery bags, so we don't always have those on hand. And also TMI, but this whole video is kind of TMI, it can get messy because of how wide the opening is. And when you're violently throwing up, not in an ideal place, it's not fun using a grocery bag that is not the most, how do I put this? Reliable receptacle, let's say that. So these bags are, I got them on Amazon. They're specifically for throwing up. I would put these everywhere. I'd put them in different rooms of the house, up at my desk, in my car, in Steven's car. And these saved me quite a few times. So if you are having a lot of vomiting in pregnancy, get a set of these. They are very helpful. At least they were for me. Next up, one thing I saw a lot of people mention, and I've gotten as a recommendation from many of my friends who've been through pregnancy, is Preggy Pops. And these are little candies that are meant to help with nausea and help with vomiting. But I found that these actually weren't that helpful for me. They tasted good. They're just, you know, tasty little candies, but they didn't actually really help my nausea. Everyone's body is different, and so this might work great for you. It's worth a shot. But what actually worked better than these for me was these lemon and ginger honey drops. These are called Upspring Stomach Settle. And again, they're just like little candies. They have ginger, lemon, mint, and B6. They don't taste as good as the Preggy Pops, but I actually did find them very helpful at settling my stomach and helping with my nausea quite a bit. So maybe you'll try both and the Preggy Pops will work and the Upspring won't, or the Upspring will work and the Preggy Pops won't. But there are lots of little things like this that you can give a try, and this is just what worked best for me. Okay, then we have a cup with a straw. Not the most, you know, unique pregnancy invention, but for whatever reason, when I was super nauseous, if I was drinking water from like a cup or a water bottle that didn't have a straw, it would make me nauseous. But if I drank from like this water bottle that has the built-in straw, or my Starbucks cup that has a built-in straw, it didn't make me nauseous. And so I pretty much just started drinking from this water bottle exclusively, and I carry it with me everywhere. So if you're finding it difficult to drink water without making yourself nauseous, try using something with a straw. The two things that I mentioned in the week 4 and 5 things that help, but I'll mention them here again. Having a pack of nuts by my bedside. As you can see, this one is practically empty. This is still the one that's in my bedside table. Super great at just getting something small into my stomach before I even got out of bed. And I don't have a LaCroix here with me, but those were helpful too. Next, this one was definitely a must-have for me in the first couple weeks of pregnancy, but just cheap HCG strips. Once I had found out I was pregnant and confirmed the pregnancy, I found myself still having the desire to take a pregnancy test in the morning. Like I said, I had a lot of fears of miscarriage early on, and I really wanted to make sure that my HCG line was progressing and specifically not getting lighter, but I didn't need to be taking expensive early response tests anymore. I just needed needed something to measure my HCG. And so just having these cheap HCG strips so I could continue to test early on, even when my pregnancy had already been confirmed, was really helpful for my peace of mind and didn't really cost too much. Okay, this next one is kind of funny, but having a little floating ducky thermometer. I really, really love taking baths. It's one of my favorite things to do just for my me time. And there are some, you know, conflicting opinions on this depending on who your OBGYN is or just where in the world you live. But where I live, and from my OBGYN, she had recommended that I don't take baths that are over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And that is because they just don't want you to raise your internal body temperature too much, and it's just an extra precaution. And I actually posted about, you know, using this on Instagram and loving taking baths when I'm pregnant. And I actually got quite a few DMs from people being like, what the heck, my doctor never told me that, or where I live in this country, that's not a thing. And so I just want to say, you know, that's just what my OBGYN had told me, so that's what I'm following. And I just put this in the bath with me, make sure that the water temperature stays cool enough. And also, I will continue to use this when baby girl is here for her baths, so double convenient. Next must have, around week 7 or 8, I went to Michael's and I bought this box. And this has been really, really great. This is kind of like my pregnancy box with all of the ultrasound photos. I have my pregnancy test. What else do we have in here? We have some of my medical papers. We have a little outfit that one of Steven's friends actually sewed for us after we announced the sex. Another little outfit that my friend Kenzie bought for her, just little things like that. I'm trying to do bump dates every 4 weeks where I take photos in the same outfit. So here are like the Polaroids that we took from week 8 and week 12. We have all kinds of little stuff like that in here. And so it's just been really nice to have like a place where I put all that stuff and keep track of it. So definitely recommend getting like a little pregnancy memory box. And actually this one is starting to get kind of full, so maybe I'll move the clothes out of here, or maybe I'll just get a bigger box. But my last pregnancy must have, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but sweats, pajama pants, anything that doesn't apply any sort of pressure to your stomach. I love leggings, but I could not wear anything that put any sort of pressure on my stomach early on. It made me so nauseous. And so I bought a couple new pairs of sweats when I was at like week 6, I think. And I have gotten so much use out of them. I continue to wear them all the time. And that concludes my first trimester must-haves and my first trimester recap. So if you've been pregnant before, let me know down in the comments what your first trimester was like. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do videos like this for my second and third trimester, just because now that I've announced it, I'm kind of talking about these things as they happen to me. But I'm really glad that I took these like detailed notes early on, because even scrolling through these and reliving it with you guys for this video, I forgot like half the things that I was feeling and like half the things that happened to me. And that's kind of the fun thing about vlogging, is it's like a video diary. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was a long one, but there was a lot to cover, and we will see you tomorrow for day 4 of Vlogmas. Bye! Baby, this